Today I want to talk about why I love and I hate the Blackmagic Pocket cinema camera. So clarification, I'm not here to tell you that this is a terrible camera. It's a phenomenal camera, especially for the money. There's a billion YouTube videos on here that rave about this camera, and I'm not here to disagree with them. I've been using Blackmagic cameras ever since I first became a full-time freelancer, and even before then. I love these cameras. I can't get enough of them. I don't think I'll shoot on anything else, any other brand I mean. But they do come with some shortcomings, and these shortcomings are mostly to do with the way I shoot and the way I want to construct my image and my cinematography. They're less about the camera itself. So let's get into it. Now, first and foremost, the image that comes out of these cameras is just unbeatable. For the price that you can get hold of these cameras, the 4K, the 6K, any variation of these Blackmagic Pocket cameras, you can't get a better image. Just phenomenal image. That cinema-like quality, the colors that come out of it, especially in Blackmagic RAW, the ability to shoot cinema footage with this price point is just unbeatable. The moment I first saw the image that comes out of these cameras, I knew I couldn't go to anything else. It's definitely an image that sets you apart from other videographers. I think a lot of videographers shoot on Sonys, on Canons, and you know, there's no such thing as a bad camera. There's no such thing as a camera with a bad image these days. All cameras are phenomenal. All cameras give you what you need. But I think the kind of taste in the visuals that I'm looking for aligns much more with the Blackmagic. Now, the weird thing about these cameras is that they were kind of intended to be just kind of pick up and shoot cameras. As you can see by the design, I don't think they were marketed as cameras to be kind of built out. Maybe they were, I don't know, but I don't think they were kind of crafted as cameras to be built out. Could be wrong, but you can tell by the design, like they're and the name, the Blackmagic Pocket. I think the idea is to pick up these cameras and kind of shoot straight away. But what aspiring cinematographers such as myself have done, have kind of realized that we can get these cameras for cheap, and then we can rig them out into cinema cameras and be able to shoot on cinema cameras for a low budget, essentially. Now, what's beautiful and also kind of annoying about these cameras is that they kind of force you to approach filming as a cinematographer rather than a videographer. And that means being very intentional about what you're shooting, how you're shooting it, being very intentional about lighting, paying much more attention to lighting, investing in more gear when it comes to lighting, being more thoughtful about how you're filming something. It's not the kind of camera where you can just pick it up, go to a random place, you know, and just kind of point and shoot, especially if you're doing documentary work or interviews. It's terrible in low light. It has no stabilization. And those aren't factors that affect me, because I want to approach filmmaking as a cinematographer and not a videographer. From what I understand, no professional cinematographer who works on a film set works with a camera that has internal stabilization or, you know, autofocus and stuff like that. That's more for the kind of run and gun videographer for hire, and there's nothing wrong with that. You know, I envy videographers who work with cameras that have autofocus and internal stabilization, because they don't have to worry about stuff like that, and they can focus on the image. But it is kind of annoying that I have to make it as heavy as possible, rig it out to ensure that I get the stabilization that I need. It's also kind of annoying that I can't just take it out at night and just film happy-go-lucky and not have to worry about the image being blown out, because unfortunately these cameras are terrible in low light. You know, Sony's, I've worked with Sony A7S's, I'm sure the Sony FX is the same. Under low light, it's just absolutely phenomenal. You don't have to think about lighting. You don't have to think too much about the image being blown out, because it's just so beautiful in low lighting. That's one thing I kind of hate about these cameras. And I want to give a caveat about using the word hate and my general critique of these cameras, because again, like I said, they're phenomenal cameras and I would never use anything else. This is more just about the way I'm filming myself and things I kind of wish I had. But I would not trade these cameras for those things. I would not sell these cameras for a Sony A7 FX3 or 7 or whatever it is. The second thing is just the build of a Blackmagic Pocket rig kind of annoys me. It just feels kind of makeshift. You have a battery on the back, you know, you have a lot of gaps in the rig, and when you're holding it, it doesn't feel as sturdy as a cinema camera kind of should be, or the way I want a cinema camera to feel. I'm really interested in the Blackmagic Ursa, and to be honest with you, the Ursa will solve a lot of the issues that I'm discussing right now. One of the reasons is because it's very sturdy. It's not like you have gaps inside the camera. It's not like you have to reach between the V-Lock battery and the screen to kind of tap stuff. It doesn't feel makeshift. It doesn't feel like you've kind of forced something together, if that makes sense. I know it seems like a non-point, like you can just pick up a camera and shoot, it still films fine. But you know, when you're constantly filming, when you're on the go, when you have cameras in your hand, you want to be comfortable with the camera that you're filming with. And I think that's kind of the annoyance that I have. It doesn't feel as comfortable to shoot with a Blackmagic rig as it would with a Blackmagic Ursa. Essentially a camera that is built like a tank and doesn't need really to be rigged out as much as this does. The third thing is the lack of rolling shutter. You know, I do a lot of B-roll for the clients that I work with, and I've realized that I film a lot in slow motion, and the reason I do that is just because it looks smoother than it would with if I was shooting normally. And a part of that is because of the lack of stabilization, but I think a bigger part of that is because of the lack of rolling shutter. You can kind of tell the image sometimes looks a bit wavy, and that really annoys me. That shouldn't be in the image of any aspiring serious cinematographer under any circumstances. So that kind of annoys me as well. Again, for me, it's like I'm just constantly trying to chase the image that I know I'm capable of creating, and the minute a camera is not allowing me to do that, that's when I feel like the camera is kind of letting me down. And of course there's ways around it. I can rig the hell out of the Blackmagic and make sure it's as heavy as humanly possible, and buy an easy rig and all that kind of stuff. But again, I feel like these problems will be solved with the Blackmagic Ursa. And lastly, dynamic range. I want high dynamic range. The reason I've been looking heavily at the Blackmagic Ursa 4.6K and not the Blackmagic Ursa 12K is because it has more stops of dynamic range. I think, the way our brains work, we think 4K, 6K, 8K, 12K, and we think more pixels mean a better image. More pixels, I'm sure they do make a better image, but dynamic range for me is what I chase. I really want high dynamic range because I feel like that is what will set your image apart from every other image. And I feel like it's something very subtle that perhaps only a cinematographer's eye will notice. But again, like when I'm watching TV and I see the way faces look, I see the way daylight looks, I see the way images look in general, I can tell that the camera's high dynamic range is what has given me that image. And while I can't work with Aries and Venices and whatever else within my budget as a freelance filmmaker, what I can do is look for qualities in cameras that might give me similar looking images with the qualities that the cameras provide. And in this case, that would be high dynamic range. So the dynamic range on the Blackmagic Pocket kind of annoys me, and I see it sometimes in images that I produce, and I feel like a Blackmagic Ursa would solve that challenge. Again, caveat, I love these cameras. These are amazing cameras. I'm not here to tell you these are bad cameras. These are more about how I use the cameras and how I want to use cameras. I just wanted to kind of put a video out there which discusses how these cameras might not be the best camera for you. And like I've said multiple times, I feel like the Blackmagic Ursa is the camera that will solve these challenges for me. But for me, Blackmagic is my go-to, I would hope, forever. I love the images these cameras give you. I love the interface. I love the philosophy behind Blackmagic's team and what they're trying to provide for the cinematography world to make these cameras, everything from Blackmagic RAW to cinema cameras themselves, more accessible to filmmakers who are working on lower budgets. And that for me is something super admirable and why they will always have my loyalty. Hope you enjoyed that. Hope you enjoyed the footage. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next week. Bye.